Welcome to Does It Matter by Brainy Ballers, where we dissect the game with cutting-edge analytics to give you the upper hand. We analyze everything from hand sizes to average depth of targets to uncover hidden trends that no one else sees. Say goodbye to guesswork and hello to data-driven domination. Because here at Brainy Ballers, we don't just watch the game, we understand it. So get ready, it's podcast time.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're really digging into something I know a lot of you wrestle with in fantasy football. Basically, does a wide receiver's draft capital, how early they get picked, does it actually link up with how well they do for your fantasy team? We've got a bunch of sources you sent in, looked at data way back to 2003. Our mission, give you the clearest picture we can.
Yeah, and that's the real value here, isn't it? It's not fortune telling, not a crystal ball or anything, but finding these kinds of patterns, super useful. Lets you compare guys, gauge potential, gives you an edge, helps sort the signal from the noise, you know.
All right, let's break this down then. How we tackled this, our method. We looked at the top 50 fantasy finishers each year, and specifically PPR leagues, points per reception, so every catch counts, since 2003. So diving in, the first really big thing we found was from this averages chart we put together. It categorized all those top finishers. And honestly, what jumped out right away was the consistency. In 19 out of 21 seasons, that's what, like 90.5% of the time? The top 5 fantasy guys had similar or even higher draft capital compared to the guys finishing way down like 31st to 50th.
Just that alone is a huge signal, right?
Absolutely. But okay, here's where the deep dive really got interesting.
Right, because that 90.5%, great starting point. But we wanted to nail down, like, the optimal range. Where's the real sweet spot? Initially, the data kind of nudged us towards maybe the 50th overall pick and earlier. Seems strong, but we pushed it, ran more tests, and actually found the most productive range was,
Do you want to start dominating your drafts? At BrainyBallers.com, we've researched every metric under the sun for you to find which ones are best linked to fantasy points. You can access hundreds of metrics to sharpen your scouting abilities so you know which metrics matter and which are just noise. Stop guessing on which thresholds to look for within each metric. Big numbers can be misleading or irrelevant. Our Ultimate Athlete Blueprints reveal essential scouting metrics, their importance, and benchmarks within each metric that help predict a player's probability of being a success or bust. Elevate your scouting ability with Brainy Ballers Ultimate Athlete Blueprints today. Click the link in the description. Now back to the show.
the 70th overall pick rounded to the nearest 10, basically, and below. So anyone picked earlier than that.
70th overall.
Yeah. And that specific group, they showed up 18.8% more often in the top 10 fantasy finishers each year compared to the bottom 10.
Wow. Okay. That's a pretty specific finding. From just consistency to a defined range with a percentage boost. But, people might still be skeptical. What's the actual statistical backing? How strong is that correlation, really?
Good question. We ran the numbers, calculated a Pearson correlation value.
Okay.
And it came out as negative 0.142.
Negative 0.142.
Yeah.
Now, how strong is that?
Well, look, in fantasy football, with all the chaos, injuries, coaching, targets, everything, a negative 0.142 is actually a really solid, consistent signal. And just for comparison, think about quarterbacks. Everyone accepts QB draft capital is important, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, that correlation is negative 0.219. So while QB capital might be a bit stronger, this negative 0.142 for receivers, it's definitely in that significant territory. It matters.
Got it. That puts it in perspective. Okay, so it's a compelling trend. But here's the big question for fantasy managers. Is this something new, or can we actually rely on this holding up over time?
That's crucial, isn't it? So we checked. We compared the findings across the last 2 decades. And that optimal range, around the 70th or 75th pick and earlier, it's been remarkably stable. It's not just a recent blip.
Okay, that's reassuring. It reinforces the whole thing.
Exactly. Different eras of the NFL, different passing trends. But this connection holds.
So, wrapping this all up, what's the big takeaway for you, listening right now, trying to build a winning team? We all love a good late-round sleeper story.
Of course, they exist.
But the data, year after year, it just screams that those are the exceptions. They're not the rule.
Yeah.
So the actionable advice here, the kind of golden rule from this deep dive is, don't overthink it too much with wide receivers early on.
Right.
Focus on the high draft capital guys. The study points very clearly to players drafted from the 75th pick and earlier.
Yeah, that range, basically the entire first round, the second round, and about the first half of the third round.
That's your high probability zone based on this analysis. So yeah, a pretty strong correlation uncovered between where a receiver gets drafted and how likely they are to be a top fantasy producer.
Definitely. And maybe one last thing for you to think about. If we accept that high draft capital is such a strong predictor, what's really driving that? Is it just that teams are, really good at spotting raw talent early? Or is it also about the investment, the resources, the coaching focus, the sheer number of opportunities that teams naturally give to guys they spent a first or second round pick on?
That's a great point. Talent versus opportunity, or maybe the combination.
Exactly. It's like a fantasy cheat code, but figuring out why it works. That adds another layer, doesn't it?
Absolutely does. Lots to chew on there. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.